George Zimmerman has decided to file a lawsuit against the family of Trayvon Martin, Rachel Gentile, one of the witnesses in the case of the murder of Trayvon Martin, the prosecutors who prosecuted the case, and a publisher for $100 million, saying that the prosecution rested on false evidence based on what Rachel Gentile said in her testimony. Now, when I take a critical examination of this frivolous lawsuit, I see a very depraved person desperate for the last few seconds of the 15 minutes of fame they got for infamously murdering a young boy. Now, this George Zimmerman, the main reason why he is filing this lawsuit is primarily because he knows that his time is almost up as related to that fame, and he wants to go out here and get publicity for a documentary he made supposedly debunking the murder of Trayvon Martin, a documentary that wound up not being picked up at a local theater and the whole event was canceled. So he wants to make publicity for this very unpopular documentary at the expense of the Martin family, Rachel Gentile, and many others who suffered as a result of his actions. And this just shows us how reprehensible a human being your George Zimmerman is, because your George Zimmerman is an absolute scumbag over the last 5 or 6 years after he got acquitted for the murder of Trayvon Martin. This man has been selling the gun that murdered Trayvon Martin to white supremacists for over $250,000. He has gone out to different conventions with white racists, signing Skittle wrappers, and his behavior is absolutely egregious. And him suing the family for $100 million just shows us how that whenever this man hits rock bottom, he goes out here and gets a shovel and then starts digging an even deeper hole. Because to sue the family of a boy that you murdered, that just is so low and disgusting that it just turns my stomach. Because if it wasn't for George Zimmerman engaging Trayvon Martin, your Trayvon Martin would still be alive today. So all of the events that led to the so-called false witness, this was all due to George Zimmerman. Had he not engaged Trayvon Martin, he would be free and walking today without this infamous reputation. But because this beta male saw someone who wasn't a part of his smooth world, he thought he needed to engage Trayvon Martin. He escalated a situation that did not need to be escalated, and as a result, this young boy lost his life. And he lost his life all because of this dysfunctional beta male not understanding that the world doesn't revolve around him. And he still has not learned that lesson due to the enabling of the Florida Prosecutor's Office and our Attorney General Eric Holder at the time, who did not pursue federal civil rights charges against this scumbag to let him know that he needed to respect other people. And because this man has been enabled for so long, he continues to escalate his egregious and disgusting behaviors, like, again, going out here and selling that gun that murdered Trayvon Martin to a white supremacist for $250,000, going to different racist rallies and stuff, signing Skittle wrappers. And he does this because no one holds him accountable, and he continues to drive his behavior even lower by filing this lawsuit for $100 million, which is absolutely ridiculous, because to say that there were false witnesses when a prosecutor would have to vet witnesses before they put them on the stand is absolutely ridiculous. If the prosecutor felt that Rachel Gentile wasn't credible, they would not have put her on the stand. And again, your George Zimmerman just wants to, I believe, rub salt in the wounds of the Martin family, and he wants to also draw attention to his own racist and white supremacist projects, like this documentary, which I consider to be absolute garbage, talking about how he's debunking the whole Trayvon Martin murder narrative. And he also wants to try to find a way to get out of the $2.5 million in debt that he's in, because your George Zimmerman is just a very, very irresponsible, reckless, and egregious person. And he's an absolutely disgusting human being. And because he's an absolutely disgusting human being, he believes that the only way to get himself out of debt is to go into the sewer and file this lawsuit against the Martin family, and go out of his way to go out here and try to talk about there being some sort of false witness. And the whole frivolous lawsuit, again, is something that's just designed to rub salt in a wound, and it's just designed to be something that's just designed to get attention for himself. And that just shows me something that I've always thought about your George Zimmerman, because I've always thought that your George Zimmerman was some sort of sociopath, because everything is always about him. The world always revolves around him in his eyes, and he believes everything is supposed to be about him getting attention. And he thinks that he's some sort of victim, when in actuality, he is a perpetrator in this situation, and he's continuing to perpetrate violence against this Martin family by going out here and filing a lawsuit against them and threatening their life and their livelihood. And I hope that there is some judge out there who can look at this case objectively and see it for the frivolous lawsuit that it is, and throw it right out of their courtroom, because I believe that the Martin family has suffered enough with the loss of their son. I believe America has suffered enough of George Zimmerman, and we're tired of this beta male attention whore using the death of this young boy to enrich himself at their expense, and using the death of this boy as some sort of entertainment for white supremacists and white nationalists. I believe people need to send a message to George Zimmerman that they are tired of him, they're tired of his reckless behavior, and they're tired of seeing him drive America into the sewer. This man is just an absolutely disgusting human being, and he's no different than those other two beta males who murdered Emmett Till. And the only fate I believe that he deserves is the exact same fate those two men who murdered Emmett Till received after they went out here their way to murder Emmett Till, and then they got away with it. Those men fell into obscurity, fell into poverty, and their lives went straight to hell. And the same thing needs to happen to your George Zimmerman, because this man has no respect for human life. He has no respect for human decency. He is an absolute piece of human garbage, and people just need to walk away from this man and anyone associated with him, because to, again, sue the family over for $100 million for something you perpetrated shows a man with no remorse, no sense of responsibility, no sense of accountability, and someone who has to possibly be a sociopath, because only a sociopath would believe that they are a victim when they were the ones who perpetrated a crime against a boy and perpetrated a crime against society.